Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, I do believe we are officially live. So good afternoon from here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. It is officially 1:02 in the afternoon. For those that are just now tuning in over here, we are live an hour early because I initially thought that we were going to be qualifying at 2 p.m. EST, but I stand corrected. It was at 1. But I'm Elijah Leonard here, bringing you the action here for tonight's qualifying sessions from here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, starting off with our knockout qualifying for the Go or Go Homers. It is the 14 drivers that are going to be taken to the track to start things off. Remember, it is the top 6 that make up the 42 car field before we officially set our starting lineup for the Coca-Cola 600. First cars on the racetrack, one of which being Michael Davis in the 30. He just narrowly grabbed the points lead away from Emmanuel Hartnett in the Menards Truck Series this past Thursday night at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the Indy Bash. Hartnett wound up crashing, or at least getting involved in the crash. He got involved late in the going of the Indiana Bash, at least the second to last caution for him, which saw Michael Davis survive just long enough to where he could grab the points lead away from Hartnett. Now here he is tonight after nabbing a top 5 last Thursday, a 28.6 to start us off here for today. And you see the rest, more drivers coming out onto the racetrack. Bruno Diacomo in the 90. Who is also at Indianapolis, wound up being one of the cars that flipped last Thursday, actually. So in that early caution back on lap 7 of the Indiana Bash. And now has made his way over here to Charlotte and is ready to go here for tonight. That is if he winds up making tonight's Coca-Cola 600. Josiah Munsell, top of the board. 28.533 for him thus far. There's Ray Atikian in the 45. He had an opportunity at winning 3 races in a row last night. Unfortunately, those hopes and dreams got dashed when Reagan DeFeo, ironically enough, driving a number 45, got her second win of the season last night. You just saw it on the full race replay that just concluded moments ago. But as of right now, Atikian currently 9th on the board at 28.535. I wouldn't be surprised to see if that time improve coming to the stripe. And indeed, a 28.290. For Ray Atikian. He now jumps up to 5th on the board with Michael Davis on the bubble spot with Jordan Sumner on the outside looking in. And there's Sumner. Wound up racing last night in the Xfinity Series. Got caught up in a crash just shy of the halfway mark. And wound up stopping in turn number 3, in the middle of turn 3, with a lot of nose damage to her Monster Energy Ford Mustang last night. Now climbs aboard the Celsius Mustang here in the Cup Series, looking to try to make the show for tonight. So far, things are not boding all that well for her. She just got knocked out of the top 10 with a 28.377. So far, Eric Blaze on the top of the board with a 28, now 137. It was a 139, but Blaze managed to improve his time by just 2 1,000ths of a second. That's actually pretty impressive there. Cornish now 3rd with a 159 as Gondello jumps up to 2nd with a 157. Munsell to 4th. Atikian still 5th, and now Michael DeFeo currently on the bubble spot with Bruno Diacomo on the outside looking in. Of course, Michael DeFeo, and also another driver that's just coming from Indianapolis after competing in the Menards Truck Series race number 6, the Indiana Bash. Now comes back here to Charlotte because last weekend the Truck Series was here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. So I would have to say some drivers that are a part of the truck series have a little bit of an advantage. I'd say a slight advantage, if anything. Of course, you know, obviously we have Eric Blaze, who competed last night, wound up getting another great finish for the 8 team over on the Xfinity Series side. Now coming over here to Cup. Eric Blaze trying to look at the rest of the season over in the Xfinity Series with a lot of high hopes. And here for tonight, of course, I mean, in the Cup Series, he doesn't really have much to lose. So he's literally driving the wheels off of the number 26. Is so far still on top of the board with a 28, 137. Gundillo still second with a 157, a 159 for Cornish as he goes to the inside of Eric Blaze. Moncel still in fourth with a 176, a 206 for Atikian, and DeFeo with a 228. Bruno Giacomo just up ahead of these two, currently on the outside looking in with a 267, a 294 right now for Samet Oskin in the number 71. Michael Davis with a 345. Martin Nixon with a 364, and we're looking at Liam Davis, currently 13th on the grid with a 28, 391. And Haley Curris, currently 14th with a 28, 622. So not looking all that great here for Haley Curris. There she is. Competed last night in the Xfinity Series. Unfortunately, got caught up in a lap. I think she wound up getting caught up in a crash early in the race. I think it might have been right around lap 18, if anything. Of course, we'll have to go back and take a look at it. Curtis improves quite a bit. She jumps up to 9th with a 344. Picked up 3/10, but she's going to have to pick up a little bit more than that. Maybe at least 2.5 tenths. And when I say 2.5 tenths, I mean at least 25 100ths of a second. See what Curtis's time is going to be across the stripe. And doesn't quite improve on that time. Doesn't quite improve on that time thus far. But down the back straightaway for Curtis. So far, at least the difference between 6th and 9th as of right now. Obviously, it is, I want to say, if I'm doing my math correctly, at least 12 100ths of a second. So far, Curtis not able to improve on the time as of right now. So far, she's kind of just riding it out. Ooh, look at this. Kind of a preview of what we're going to see tonight for the Coke 600 and the NOS Energy Cup Series. A little bit of 3-wide action. Nikki Fox wisely backing out of that fight as Moncel and Gundillo are going at it on the racetrack. If they are both going to make the race here for tonight, they definitely are going to get their practice in, that's for sure. Six minutes remaining. So far, the top 6 has remained unchanged since it got pretty much formed up. Now, Sumner up to 8th with a 278. That is going to knock Haley Curris down to 10th. And Samet Oskin in the 71, of course, down to the 9th spot. This is also going to be kind of interesting as well because, I mean, throughout the last couple of weeks, I mean, the Xfinity and also some of the Xfinity and Truck Series drivers are kind of mixed in here with some of these other go or go homers that only kind of focus on the Cup side of things. Some of them have raced here at Charlotte last Thursday for the Truck Series, and then raced at Indianapolis just this past Thursday. And then last week for the Xfinity Series drivers, they raced at Texas World before coming over here to race last night. So it's kind of interesting of how the last 2 weeks have been kind of odd, I'd say, if you will, for these drivers to kind of sort of flip-flop around when it comes to different sort of disciplines, when it comes to the track sizes, and also having to accommodate for just particularly the driving styles of how you tackle a place like Indianapolis or even a Texas World. And then you come over here to Charlotte, and it's just the whole dynamic sort of just changes, if you will, because this racetrack is still pretty bad fast, as is a lot of other places, but Charlotte just definitely holds a candle when it comes to speed. Martin Nixon, speaking of speed, he just picked it up, and now he is inside of the top 6 with a 226. So now he's on the bubble spot, with Michael DeFeo now on the outside looking in. And up front, or at least closer, just past the start-finish line, ahead of these two. Liam Davis now jumps up to 8th, a 28-236 rather. Liam Davis just coming from Indianapolis. He won the Indiana Bash, which you might have seen from the full race replay that premiered just yesterday. And now trying to make the cup race here for tonight. Ooh, look at that. Atikian just slid up in front of Martin Nixon there. And now Liam Davis is going to abort mission and come to pit road in the number 12 machine. There's Nicky Fox in the 32. Now he's got a little bit of company with Haley Curris, and just up ahead is Salmon Oskin in the 71 for Beacon Academy Racing. And Oskin, as of right now, currently 11th with a 28-294. And you know, for as long as Salmon Oskin has been around in the WRLA, whether it been in 2020 or 2023, wasn't around last year, but for the amount of time that he's been around this neck of the woods, it's shocking to me of how he has yet to score a win in any sort of WRLA sanctioned event, whether it be in the Truck Series or here in the Cup Series. He came close at Auto Club Speedway in 2020. I still remember that day very fondly. I mean, as I've definitely have gone on a tangent about many times, Nathan Stapleton just absolutely had the power under his Advanced Auto Parts Chevy at the time, and just rocketed around Salmon Oskin on the final lap to win the Auto Club 400 back in that year, 2020. Still a very odd year at that, but now here we are just several years later. And just less than a minute to go, Oskin is going to have to really start picking it up if he's going to have any sort of chance at making tonight's Coca-Cola 600. We got a huge wad of cars up here, so this could also be a opportunity for somebody like Bruno Giacomo to potentially get into the race. So far, he's 10th with a 28-267. So could, maybe, just very well could get the job done if he's able to. And another 10 seconds before we get some added time. That will mean that these drivers, once that time gets added in, 27 seconds on the clock, they're going to have enough time to put down at least one more lap. But I don't think it's going to be enough for anybody 7th on down. Martin Nixon, probably the only other driver that he'd have to worry about is Michael DeFeo, but there's no time left, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think he's going to have to worry anymore. I don't know why I said that. But ladies and gentlemen, your top 6 that will race in tonight's Coca-Cola 600 is Eric Blaze, Ryan Gundillo, Joshua Cornish, Josiah Munsell, Ray Atikian, and Martin Nixon, holding on to the final transfer spot by just 2 1/1000ths of a second over Michael DeFeo, whom unfortunately is going to have to miss out on this year's Coke 600. Liam Davis, Jordan Sumner, Bruno Diacomo, and then also to throw into the mix, Sam Adoskin, Haley Curris, Michael Davis, and also Nikki Fox. Unfortunately, those drivers will have to sit this one out and get ready for for Chicago next Saturday. But ladies and gentlemen, big congratulations to Blaze, Gundillo, Cornish, Munsell, Atikian, and Nixon. They will be racing in the Coca-Cola 600 for tonight. And ladies and gentlemen, when we come back, we'll get everybody set up. We'll get all the 6 cars into the 42 car field for tonight, and then it will be time to set the starting lineup for the Coca-Cola 600. Don't go away. We will be right back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are officially back, and now it is time to set the starting lineup for tonight's Coca-Cola 600, which you will catch. Just give me 1 second. There we go. All righty. So we're officially good to go, ladies and gentlemen. Had a little bit of some background noise that we had to get rid of, but ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to set your starting lineup for the Coca-Cola 600 tonight. First car out on the racetrack, that is the number 31 of Eric Monaco. And with this night here, ladies and gentlemen, one last push for these drivers in this double points format that we have, that we're rolling with for the month of May. And then after this race, we'll be going back to our normal points format, which, just to remind everybody, it is 1 point for leading a lap, 5 points for leading the most laps, and 10 points for winning the race. Those are the bonus points that you can get, along with the 40 points for finishing in first place. And then 35 for second, 34 for third, and so on, so forth, all the way until you get down to 36 on down, which would all get 1 point. To start us off in our first round of qualifying, Monaco, a 28.653 for the number 31. Right now, Monaco sits fourth in the point standings coming in here to tonight. And boy, Eric Monaco, our winner from Martinsville, would definitely love to try to get win number 2 on the season. It's amazing to me of how we've gone this long without a repeat winner. So far, within the last 10 races, we have had 10 different winners here tonight. Monaco is one of those that is looking to try to make it at least one repeat winner, at least become the first repeat winner for 2026. There's Russell Blaze in the 29, making his way out onto the racetrack. Just ahead of him is Mercedes Davis, just coming from Indianapolis in the Indiana Bash, and she was one of the drivers, of course, that wound up flipping at Indianapolis. And boy, Russell Blaze, who was also in Indianapolis just this past Thursday, failed to qualify for the race, but after seeing the chaos that unfolded at Charlotte, he's definitely thankful that he missed the race. That's for sure. But Blaze, so far, his time as of right now is a 28.591, currently 17th quickest. And we're still waiting on a lot of these other cars, still waiting for the rest of the other drivers to put down a lap. There's Bobby Maguire in the 18. Actually had himself a pretty good showing in the Coke 600 this past November. And unfortunately for this season, it's kind of been up and down for him. I'd say for Maguire, got himself off to a really great start to the year in the Daytona 500, took home a top 5 finish, but has yet to score a win in his NOS Energy Cup Series career. So far, his girlfriend and teammate Janiyah Hill has 2 wins on her career. One came at Homestead just last year. And then, to start off the month of May, on May 1st at the Ricky Raceway. So far, Hill sits 17th with a 28.235. Maguire is on the outside looking in to transfer on to round 2 with a 28.337 and got bumped down to 26th. And now it's Eric Blaze on the bubble spot with, well, now Eric Blaze is on the outside looking in. There's a lot of changes that are going on inside of the top 24. Remember, for tracks that are above 1 mile, it is a 3-round format where the fastest 24 drivers move on to round 2, and then the fastest 12 from round 2 go on to round number 3, and they fight it out for the pole from there. So far, Terry Walker, top of the board with a 28.137. And it's Ramsey second with a 146. Ray Atikian continuing the momentum. Third with a 165. Russell Blaze, fourth with a 179. His old ride is just right behind it by 1/1000th of a second. That it being Alex Sanvitali. Stephen Walker, who had his career best finish of 2nd place this past Saturday at Texas World. Currently 6th with a 189. Monsell with a 195. Monaco with a 198. Avery Alford with a 201, and then Joshua Cornish with a 204. Look at Sebastian Vaughn in the 54, aborting and coming to pit road. So far, Vaughn is 16th with a 2:19 to his name. Right now, Bobby McGuire was able to improve his time just enough to where he now holds on to the bubble spot and 1/1000th of a second off is Skylar Taylor, currently on the outside looking in. There's Wyatt Walker in the 19. Right now, he currently sits at this current moment actually inside of the top 24, so in good position to advance on to round 2 with a 28-11. Now, this session was originally supposed to be 10 minutes, but I must have made a little mishap and kept the session at 15. So we're going to stick with this for now, and then the next 2 rounds will be 10 minutes. So I had a little bit of an error on my end. I do want to apologize for that, but that error will be corrected for the next round. There's Kyle Craven in the 28, and man, it's such a shame that Kyle Craven has just not had himself a really great year this year after just winning the championship last year for American Motorsports in his rookie season. Now kind of having a sophomore slump, if you will. Comes into this race 34th in the point standings. Ryan Little there in 22nd in standings, points-wise. So far here in this qualifying session, he is 18th with a 28-27, currently tied with Ryan Gundillo but currently has the edge by at least a couple millionths of a second, if you will. And then there's Ryan Davis in the 77, our winner from Brazil, with a 28-30. So far sitting in the 20th spot. Our championship leader, Tanner Parton, making his way out on the racetrack. And so far, not having himself a good run here in qualifying. Right now, a 28-4-45 for our current points leader. You know, for a week, he lost the points lead to Russell Blaze, who won at Talladega earlier this month. But then the next week at Iowa, Russell Blaze wound up struggling. And then Tanner Parton, who was actually having himself a really great run at Iowa, took home a top 10 finish. And that was enough for him to take back the points lead. And he has kind of been running with it ever since then. So far here for tonight, Parton just not faring too well in qualifying, as he is 41st on the grid. Andrew Ramsey having himself a great year this year. So far, top 10 in the point standings. But here in this session, he is actually in good position to advance. Right now, he is second with a 28-1-46. Just up ahead is Abby Walker in the 16, second to last in the point standings. And in this session, 26th with a 28-260. So far, the best finish that she has had all year thus far is a runner-up finish at Minnesota. Wound up losing out to Skylar Taylor in Minnesota back in February. But Abby Walker just not having a great year this year, and looking to try to see if she can turn it around. Maybe tonight here in the Coca-Cola 600, where the double points format, I think, since it is the final race with this points format for 2026, is going to be absolutely 100% crucial for a driver like Abby Walker. Even the same can be said for Wyatt Walker. He won this race this past November. And he's always talked about of how the 19 and Charlotte Motor Speedway just always mix very, very well. So Wyatt Walker definitely looking to try to prove that theory to be correct once again by winning back-to-back Coca-Cola 600s. and get his second win of the season. He won at Fontana back in March. Now looking to try to get another win into that W's column. Less than 5 minutes to go. CG Holt up to 13th with a 28.214. And so far, your top 10 has remained unchanged for the most part, and it looks like this. Of course, Terry Walker would be in prime position to advance on to round 2. Following in the second position, that would be Andrew Ramsey. In third, Ray Atikian. Russell Blaze would be fourth. Then in fifth would be Alexander Vitalik. In sixth would be the 24 of Stephen Walker. Josiah Munsell in seventh. Monaco 8th, Alfred 9th, and then completing your top 10, that would be Joshua Cornish. But now 3.5 minutes remaining here in this session. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody like Nathan Stapleton, for instance, or even a Moscow or Sebastian Vaughn. Vaughn now 16th with a 2.19, still inside of the top 24. But I wouldn't be too surprised if Nathan Stapleton definitely took advantage of the draft here. I mean, he is in good position to do so. And it has happened before. We saw it in the knockout qualifying session for the Go or Go Homers not that long ago. And look at Sebastian Vaughn just riding around the outside of both Stapleton and Val Moscow. That's some power, if anything. That is some power on that number 54, and could be a force to be reckoned with here in tonight's Coke 600. Very, very well could be, with 2.5 minutes to go. McGuire holding on to that final transfer spot still. Janiah Hill 17th, or 22nd rather, with a 28.235. Vaughn goes to pit road yet again. And Tanner Parton has improved his time, but not enough to get him close to that top 24 threshold. Oh, look at the run that Tanner Parton has on Abby Walker. Just gets down to the inside going into turn number 3 and just makes it look absolutely easy coming off of turn number 4. Gets by Abby Walker pretty cleanly. And Parton, you know, I'm actually kind of shocked that that wasn't enough to improve his lap time there. Let's see if he can try it again. It's a great run on Wyatt Walker. Pulls up alongside him and gets by. No problems whatsoever. See what the lap time is going to look like across the stripe. That's amazing to me. That is absolutely amazing to me, of how Parton has not been able to improve on his lap times there. Here's Claire Phillips with 1 minute to go here in this session. So far, she is 15th on the board with a 28.218. Definitely going to be enough to advance on into round number 2. And I would say for Claire Phillips, I mean, she has been able to turn things around here within the last few weeks here, ladies and gentlemen. She managed to pick up at least 3 top 10s in a row and led a good handful of laps within the last 3 weeks. So she has definitely taken full advantage of this month based off of pure consistency alone. Bit of a close call there between Aaron Abel and Kyle Craven. Craven making his way back out onto the racetrack. But man, what an unbelievable turn of events here for Claire Phillips, managing to get herself inside of the top 20 in the point standings. And oh no, there goes Abby Walker into the inside wall. Yet saves it, keeps it straight. And have enough time to put down one more lap, but man, that was actually kind of interesting. Abby Walker getting absolutely turned by Aaron Abel. But she's still going to get a decent starting spot in 26. Going to have her work cut out for her here for tonight. But ladies and gentlemen, as this round comes to a conclusion, Bobby McGuire holds on to the final transfer spot by 1/1000th of a second over Skylar Taylor. And with that said, everybody else from 25th on down, that is where they will be starting in tonight's Coca-Cola 600. How about that? And there it is. Times are now finalized officially. And take a look at this, ladies and gentlemen. These are the drivers that will be racing, that will be moving on into the second round inside that top 24 threshold. Terry Walker, Andrew Ramsey, Ray Atikian, Russell Blaze, Alexander Vitali, Stephen Walker, Josiah Munsell, Eric Monaco, Avery Alford, Joshua Cornish, and then it's Taylor, Wyatt Walker, Holt, Moore, Phillips, Vaughn, Rose, Little Gundillo, Davis, Crown, Hill, Blaze, and McGuire in that top 24 threshold. And then you take a look at 25th on down. This is where they will be starting in tonight's Coca-Cola 600. But again, big congratulations to the top 24. They move on to round number 2 here, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go away. Our second round of knockout qualifying for the Coca-Cola 600 is coming your way very shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to the Charlotte Motor Speedway. It is now time for round number 2 of qualifying for the Coca-Cola 600. And we now know our fastest 24 competitors, and now it's time to figure out the top 6 that will move on into, or the top 12 rather, that will move on into the final round and go for the pole position in tonight's Coca-Cola 600. Jerry Rose will be the first one to make his way out onto the racetrack. Wyatt Walker in the 19 will be following. So far, those are our first 2 cars, our first 2 drivers that are making their way out onto the track. Crown is now going to join them. And several others will now be coming on out. Gundillo, Ryan Little, Ryan Davis will all be joining Rose and Walker on the racetrack. And Jerry Rose, I believe, is already on the clock. If he wasn't before, he definitely is now. Jerry Rose on the clock. We're going to be watching him as he makes his way through turn number 2 down the back straightaway. Wyatt Walker in the distance as Steven Walker's making his way on track. To start us off for round number 2, officially, a 28.980 for Jerry Rose and a 9.12 for Wyatt Walker to start things off. Monaco and CG Halt, both of them are making their way on track. Or making their way onto the track, rather. Man, my English is just so on point here for tonight, guys. This is gonna be a great broadcast. You're gonna catch the Coke 600. All 200 laps will be broadcasted live on Twitch, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And my goodness, it's gonna be a fun time. It is going to be an absolutely fun time from here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Crown now to the top of the board with a 28.412. But that's going to change pretty quickly as this session goes on. Vaughn in second. Well, now it's Steven Walker top of the board. 28.5 or 358. Wyatt Walker second with a 28.367. How about that for the Walkers? 2 different teams, and so far they were on top, and now Crown and Vaughn have taken their crowns back. No pun intended when I say that. Steven Walker back to the top, a 28.303 for him. Wyatt Walker not able to capitalize, but he's got Ryan Davis just ahead of him. So maybe, actually no, it looks like Davis, he goes up high and he will be peeling off and going to pit road in the number 77 machine. But how about this? Wyatt Walker, 5th right now in the standings. 5th on the leaderboard. Ryan Davis now holding on to the final transfer spot. Now it's Eric Blaze. Now it's Russell Blaze. Man, it's just constantly changing inside of the top 12 as far as who's in and who's not. Russell Blaze improves up to 9th. Cornish on the bubble spot. Atikian on the outside looking in. Now it's Jerry Rose on the bubble spot. And Cornish gets knocked out. Rose gets knocked out. Blaze on the bubble spot. Now it's Alford and Russell Blaze in the 11th position. Eric Blaze on the outside looking in. And Avery Alford is just holding on by 6/1000ths of a second of the guy that he has to beat in order to go to the final round. Man, that's actually kind of interesting of the dilemma that we're starting to see unfold before us. And Josiah Munsell from out of nowhere, top of the board, a 28.298. For the number 15 machine, Stephen Walker, second. With Ramsey, Zachary Taylor, Crown, San Vitale, Monaco, Vaughn, Cornish, and Wyatt Walker. And then it's Russell Blaze, and then the 23 of Avery Alford. So far, that would be your top 12, as we're less than 5 minutes remaining. Ooh, a little bit of some close contact there between Cornish and Walker. As you saw Janiyah Hill peel off the racetrack and head to pit road in the number 7 machine. So far, she is 23rd with a 28.527. Claire Phillips. I'm not sure what happened to all that speed in the number 5, but it looks like for round number 2, she is in trouble. Phillips, a 28.533. She's got Bobby McGuire just ahead of her. McGuire right now 15th with a 28.391. So now Phillips is going to make her way down to pit lane. Maybe see what kind of adjustments that they can make on that UPS Camry. And there goes CG Hall back out on the racetrack. Right now, CG Hall in this session currently sitting 21st with a 28.469. And then just behind them is Monaco, and then the Walkers of Steven and Wyatt. Across the stripe this time around. Wyatt not able to improve on his time in order to better his odds of getting into the final round. Less than 3 minutes to go. Eric Monaco 8th right now with a 327, as we just mentioned a little bit ago. And there goes Monaco. Monaco trying to get to the inside. Monaco trying to get to the inside of Stephen Walker there. CG Hall ahead. And then further up, you have Jerry Rose, Ryan Davis, Quentin Moore, and Ryan Little. All kind of in this spreaded single file line, but all within reach of potentially getting a draft, and that's exactly what just happened with Ryan Davis, a 28.317 that moves him inside of the top 12. And that puts Russell Blaze on the outside, looking on the bubble spot. Just 3/1000ths of a second over Avery Alford. Walker also tied. Oh, this is interesting. Walker and Russell Blaze are both tied right now. Wyatt getting the nod just by a few millionths of a second. That is going to be very, very close. Obviously, it'd be Russell Blaze that would get knocked out first. Save somebody outside of the top 12. Or to actually make it in. Phillips back out on track. Less than 90 seconds to go. Let's see if there's been any sort of adjustments made on that number 5. So far, she is 24th still with that 533. Things not looking too well here for Phillips in this session, but she is still going to get a decent starting position. And could, maybe, just maybe, if she plays her cards right, be in contention for another top 10 finish. Maybe could go for a top 5 tonight. Remember last year's Coke 600 back in November, she wound up crashing out of the event with Aaron Abel in the very early stages of the Coke 600. We're going to try to change all that here for tonight as Phillips just wrestles around Russell Blaze. And so far, no improvements time-wise for the number 5 machine. Russell Blaze really starting to fall back. 28 seconds have been added, so that way these drivers can put down one more good lap. Now Russell Blaze on the outside looking in, and Walker on the bubble spot. I think Ryan Gundillo just managed to break into the top 12. A 28.353 for him. And I think that is going to be all she wrote. Russell Blaze is going to have to settle for a 13th starting spot. And Wyatt Walker, man, he can breathe after that one because he just barely holds on to get into the final round. So, ladies and gentlemen, your 12 drivers that will be fighting for the pole in round number 3 will be Munsell, Stephen Walker, rather. I'm getting my Walkers mixed up. Andrew Ramsey, Sebastian Vaughn, Ryan Davis, Zachary Taylor, Roberto Crown Jr., Alex Sanvitali, Eric Monaco, Ryan Gundillo, Joshua Cornish, and Wyatt Walker. Just narrowly holding on to stay inside of the top 12, and our defending Coke 600 winner is going to have an opportunity at winning the pole here for tonight. Everybody else from 13th on down, as you can see, that is where they'll be starting in tonight's Coke 600. Phillips wound up improving her time, but not enough to get towards the top 12. Ladies and gentlemen, when we come back, it'll be round number 3, our final round of Coke 600 qualifying from the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Who's going to win the pole for tonight's Coca-Cola 600? Stay tuned. We're going to get the field set up, and we'll be back for our last 10-minute sprint. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to go here for our final round of NOS Energy Cup qualifying from here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. We now know our fastest 12, but the question will be, who will be the fastest out of all of them to win the pole for tonight's Coca-Cola 600? The clock is ticking, and we have yet to see somebody pop out of line and start making their way onto the track. Mansell, who was the fastest out of everybody in round 2, spawns at the front. And I think it sounds like somebody might have pulled out of line, and look at this. Sam Vitale kind of struggling to get out of his pit box, gets into the back of Ramsey, but he will be the first one out of the 12 to make his way out onto the racetrack. And he will be on the clock here very shortly. Let's see if there's going to be anybody else that leaves their box to make their way out on the track. So far, Sam Vitale is the only one. Mansell now comes out on the track. Looks like he made some contact with Cornish there, but I think he should still be okay. I don't see any damage on the 8 machine, so he should still be good to go. 24, Walker on the racetrack, going on the track, as is the 85 of Zachary Taylor, and on the clock is Alex San Vitale. So far in the point standings, running in the 15th position for the number 69 of Alex San Vitale. And across the stripe, it is a 29-217 to start us off. There's Wyatt Walker in the 19. Who's also made his way out onto the racetrack, and I believe he is going to be going on the clock. 28-9-21 for Josiah Mansell for his first official time. Ramsey on track, as well as Eric Monaco. A 28-754 for Zachary Taylor, an 884 for Stephen Walker, and for Wyatt, it is a 29-209 for the Bass Pro Shops machine. San Vitale back on top with a 28-572. I would expect that to quickly change here as this session goes on. Field comes off of 4. Gundillo to third with a 613. Mansell to the top of the board, 446. Wyatt Walker third with a 600. How about that? The times are starting to pick up here, folks. Zachary Taylor to the top of the board, a 28-428. For the number 85 machine, who has just had an abysmal year thus far. And now gets bumped down to second by Josiah Mansell. Now by Andrew Ramsey and Eric Monaco. A 28-359 for Ramsey and a 393 for Monaco. Walker third with a 28-4. How about that? So now it's Crown up to 5th. Then in 6th is the 85 of Zachary Taylor. Sebastian Vaughn to 7th. Kendall, or not Ryan Kendall, excuse me, but Ryan Davis in 8th. Cornish 9th. Stephen Walker 10th. And as Wyatt Walker is going to peel off and head to pit road, you take a look at Sam Vitale and then Ryan Gundillo, 11th and 12th. Still, respectfully, they would get some really good starting positions and really sort of better opportunities, if you will, at potentially maybe winning here tonight. Halfway through our final round. Looks like Ramsey's going to break off and come to pit road as well. Hard on the brakes for Ramsey as he makes his way onto pit lane. There's Sebastian Vaughn Now aborting, coming to pit road. So far 7th with a 28.443. That'd be a really great top 10 starting position for Sebastian Vaughn. There's Ryan Davis in the 77, a 4.82 for him. So far, again, in the 8th position. Cornish 9th with a 4.93. He came from Indianapolis from this past Thursday. Unfortunately, wound up getting wrecked out of the event. Either that or I believe he finished top 15. Either way, I mean, there were still a dozen trucks that finished the event at Indianapolis. But Cornish right now, 9th in this session with a 4.93. And there, just behind him is our winner from Michigan last year, Roberto Crown Jr. And quite a ways back is one of his other cars, Eric Monaco, who won in Martinsville. You know, throughout Powerhouse Crown Racing's tenure here in the NOS Energy Cup Series, all 3 cars have visited victory lane at least one time. Roberto Crown Jr. was the first. He won at Michigan with a caution that ultimately ended the race. And Crown happened to be out front at the right time in order for that to happen, in order for the win to fall into his lap. Val Mosco, although it wasn't a points-paying win, it was still a win nonetheless. An unofficial win. He wound up getting the victory at the Kalamazoo Speedway back in January for the bash at the beach. And then just earlier this year, back in April, I believe, Eric Monaco nabbed his first NOS Energy Cup Series, official NOS Energy Cup Series victory at Martinsville. Closing in on 2 minutes remaining in this qualifying session, and Andrew Ramsey is in really good high spirits, high hopes of winning the pole here for tonight. That 28.359 has remained untouched ever since Ramsey laid that time down with Eric Monaco. But as Ramsey now makes his way back out onto the racetrack, looks like the Walkers have found each other again. Steven in the 24, Wyatt in the 19. See what that's going to look like across the line. So far, no improvements there for Wyatt, and none for Steven Walker either. But this is actually kind of interesting to see the 24 and the 19 nose to tail. Looks like the 24, he is going to be breaking off and going to pit road. And so far, no improvement there for Wyatt Walker, closing in on 1 minute to go. 1 minute remaining here in this qualifying session from here at Charlotte. San Vitale now 8th. I do believe, yeah, look at that. Alex San Vitale, 4th quickest, 28.409. Knocking the 15 of Josiah Munsell down to 5th. Cornish down to 10th. Steven Walker 11th. But my goodness gracious here, ladies and gentlemen, 30 seconds remaining. This number 69 is really starting to make some strides. He's turning things around. Might have made some adjustments. Might have found something in those adjustments. He just improved his time by 4/1000ths of a second. Just catching a whiff of the draft off of the 54 of Vaughn. Just up ahead. But it looks like San Vitale, like I was saying, I think he might have found something in the adjustments that his crew made on that machine. An additional 28 seconds have been added, so that way these drivers can add one more lap. One more attempt at trying to knock Andrew Ramsey off the top position. But I think it might be too little too late regardless. So, with 10 seconds to go. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're at the point of no return. Andrew Ramsey wins the pole for the Coca-Cola 600. He, alongside Eric Monaco, are going to be leading the field to the green flag. Row 2 sees Wyatt Walker and Alexander Vitali. Josiah Munsell and Roberto Crown Jr. will make up the third row. Row 4 sees Zachary Taylor and Sebastian Vaughn. Completing your top 10 will be Ryan Davis and the 8 of Joshua Cornish. And completing the top 12, Stephen Walker and Ryan Gundillo. Those will be the 12 drivers that will be obviously starting in the positions that they are. And as for Andrew Ramsey, he is your Coca-Cola 600 pole winner. So big congratulations to him. He will be leading the field to the green flag in tonight's Coca-Cola 600, which you will be able to catch that live tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over on the Twitch channel. And be sure to hit that like button and be sure to consider subscribing in order to keep up with some fine content coming out in the near future on the WRLA YouTube channel. And ladies and gentlemen, tonight marks our last race with this double points format. After tonight, we will go back to our normal points format, and this is going to be very interesting. Every one of these drivers are going to have one last push at trying to get the maximum amount of points, and all those different double points standings, whatever you want to call them, all of the double points that they can get here for tonight, whether it be 5 bonus points for leading a lap, the 10 bonus points for leading the most laps, and or even the 20 bonus points for winning the race. Obviously, the maximum amount that you can get is 75 in that process. So tonight's going to be an interesting one, and it is going to be a fun way to cap off the month of May and for racing month on the WRLA side of things. One more time, congratulations to Andrew Ramsey on winning the pole for tonight's Coca-Cola 600. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Take care, and we will see you all tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Twitch for the Coca-Cola 600.
This WRLA telecast may not be reproduced, retransmitted, or reused without any authorized written consent of 11 Broadcasting. WRLA would like to thank all of our loyal fans for their continued support, and we hope you enjoyed today's broadcast.